You know, I always wasn't able to understand other people. The things they dream about often seemed too small and ordinary for me. And when I started working, I was shocked, terrified. People actually love working the same job for 20, 30 or even 40 years. It's as if mine and their brains were wired differently. It led me to realize that there are inherent biological categories that determine what makes you happy in life. And that is the exact reason why self-improvement fails for so many. The solution lies in understanding those categories and what they mean. Chapter 1: Introduction. You see, self-improvement is a field that is very personal. In order to actually understand a problem and help people to solve it, you need to experience it yourself first. And if you never experienced a problem, the chance that you will be able to solve it is actually pretty low. That's why all self-improvement YouTubers, including me, aim at helping those who are similar to them. And this brings us to the topic I want to discuss in this video. People are biologically wired differently. Different things in life make them happy. And so when a person watches somebody who is in a different biological category from him, it brings him nothing more than suffering. It is completely pointless. So in order to do self-improvement correctly, you need to understand yourself first. Because again, there are biological categories that require different types of self-improvement. Today I'll tell you about two categories that I call grounded and driven. And I'll say it right now so that there are no questions later. I don't think any of those categories is inherently worse than the other. Each has its pros and cons, and each one can achieve a happy ending. The thing is, the path to happiness looks completely different for people in those two categories. So first you need to understand which category you fit into, and only then you need to start self-improvement, with full understanding of what will make you the happiest. So what are those categories I'm talking about? Chapter 2: Grounded versus Driven. As I said in the intro, throughout my whole life I wasn't able to really understand a lot of people. Because for me, the thought of the normal life path, which is like going to college, getting a good degree, getting a job, working there my whole life, etc., sounds almost insane. Why would I waste my whole life on something so miserable? This was almost like a cultural shock to me when people told me that they worked for 20 years in the warehouse that I treated like a temporary work. I thought that there surely must be something wrong with these people. And that's what made me understand one thing. All people are divided into two types: grounded and driven. Let's talk about grounded first. Grounded people are those who are the happiest when they live the normal, predictable and ordinary life. They don't chase millions and billions, and in fact they would be unhappy if they did. Those are the people who absolutely don't mind working some job for 20, 40, 50, 60 years. They don't want to be famous or anything. All they want is a normal, ordinary, stable life. The best course of action for those people is actually the normal life path, which is like getting a degree, getting a normal job, preferably a high-paying job, so that they also can enjoy life. The examples of people from this group are everywhere. Our society is built on those people. Your teacher in school was probably one of those. Your doctor is probably one of those. You are probably one of those too if you don't mind working a normal job. The second group are the driven people. The best way I can describe them is they are the happiest when they live the life that allows them to be famous, heroic, powerful, and very impactful. Living the normal, ordinary life is a torture for these people, but many still have to do this. Because I'm not saying that if a person fits into the grounded or driven category, they have to actually live like that. It doesn't work like this. Grounded people can be pulled into doing something extraordinary, and driven people can be pulled into doing something pretty ordinary, you know? What actually determines which group you fit into is which lifestyle attracts you the most. If you are attracted to being extraordinary, famous, heroic, powerful, and very impactful, then you are probably driven. Now, I believe that those traits are inherent and inheritable, so they cannot just be changed throughout your life. They are with you from the moment of your conception. I also think these traits can be passed through generations, because if you look at certain extraordinary people, they often have extraordinary parents. For instance, the father of Alexander the Great was also a great man, just not as great as his son. That also explains why there are geniuses who sometimes being born into seemingly ordinary families. My theory is that these people, for generations, suppressed their extraordinary drive. That's why when one person from this lineage actually decided to do something and had the ability to do something, he had the motivation for this. The few examples of people from this driven group are Steve Jobs, Pavel Durov, Elon Musk, Napoleon, Alexander the Great, but also, since those categories don't determine your moral values, people like Hitler, Stalin, and Mao are also in this group. There is an absolutely perfect example of this brain wiring in a person, although this example is fictional. And this example is Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I'm not gonna spoil the plot for you, if you know, you know. But this is the absolutely perfect example. Chapter 3. IQ. Now, since we started talking about these categories, I think it's important to mention how IQ affects both categories. IQ is very, very important for achieving happiness for the driven people, and not so much for the grounded people. The reason is because our society is built on the grounded people, and the driven people literally need to break the system, break out of it, to feel happy, and that requires a higher intellect. So it's actually more difficult to achieve happiness for the driven people, because let's imagine a driven man who was unlucky enough to have a pretty low IQ. What are his options? Either be unhappy, forcing himself to live the ordinary life and work in some job. That would actually be the easiest and most comfortable path for him. But since his brain is wired differently, it tells him to do something extraordinary. It would be very, very hard for him to stay in this comfortable, ordinary position. And since doing something like entrepreneurship is already very hard, and remember, our imaginary character has a low IQ, his only easy options are crime and military service. Well, crime is pretty obvious. It's obviously not an ordinary path. And if a person really desires something extraordinary in his life and doesn't know any other way, he will be tempted to try that. And military service, although military is a system with pretty rigid rules, and it doesn't have much freedom, you know, it still provides the environment, especially during wartime, for those people to feel heroic, powerful, and impactful. That's why it is also an option for driven people who cannot do entrepreneurship or something. Now, as for the grounded people, IQ is not as important for them. For them, it only correlates with how good of a career they'll get. For instance, low IQ grounded person is likely to work a low to average pay in a not a very prestigious job, and high IQ grounded person is likely to get a prestigious and high paying but ordinary career, such as a doctor, engineer, or something like that. Now, as I said before, I believe the types I described are inherent and inheritable, which means genetic. So I believe you cannot just change your type and become grounded or driven. Changing your IQ is also hard. So what do you do if you dislike your genetic lottery results? Get discouraged? Absolutely not. Chapter 4. How to use this information. First of all, you need to determine your type. Usually this is pretty easy to do. Just think of what excites you more. Living the ordinary life, you know, getting a degree, getting a good job that you like, working there for a long time, mastering your craft, having stability in life, but also still having fun from the little things. Maybe having a family, a wife, a few kids. If you like this one more, then you are grounded. Or maybe what excites you more is something like bending the fabric of space-time itself. Achieving so much that you will be remembered after millennia. Having so much money that you can buy Greenland. Having so much fame that even the most distant tribes know you. If you hate just the thought of living the ordinary life, then you must be driven. You may not like any of those specifically, but whatever your vision is, compare it to both examples, and the one it aligns with more is likely your type. If you are the grounded type, your best course of action would be to get a good degree and get some solid career that gives you a lot of free time but also a lot of money, and also something that you like, obviously. The things I listed previously, like being a doctor or engineer, sound very good for a grounded person. If you are the driven type just like me, then there is an interesting path in front of you. Unfortunately, there is no one size fits all for this type, so you will have to find or make your own path. Nowadays there are a lot of opportunities for the driven people since we live in a time of internet, and a lot of people who make and made money from the internet are actually driven people who didn't want to take the ordinary path and chose to do something else. So the easiest path for a driven person is entrepreneurship. Yeah, I know, entrepreneurship. That's the easiest path, not the hardest. The hardest would be something like becoming a famous actor, musician, or an athlete, or maybe even a politician. Though if you are a driven person, you probably already have a plan. And now that you know your type for sure, you can focus on following the path that align with your real desires, with the things that will really make you happy. You can ask me now, what about IQ? You said it's very important earlier. The thing is, IQ is pretty hard to change. But you must not allow the IQ to be your limiting factor. First of all, you don't know the limits of your IQ. And since you don't know your ceiling, it is pointless to worry about hitting it before you even try it. So just go ahead and try to find your ceiling first. And when you think you did find it, try to break it. And second, IQ does in fact improve over time if you consistently improve and learn new skills. Especially when you are young, but also when you're older too. So just learn new things, and you will naturally increase your IQ over time. And the third thing, knowing what your goals are is far more important than having a high IQ. If you don't need to figure out where you want to be, then you are already better off than those who do. Okay, I gave you the framework, now it's your job to apply it properly. Like, sub, notifications. I see you in the next one, and remember, discipline is freedom.